All right, so we've got the story making the rounds about a billion-pound lawsuit against Microsoft.
No.
And this is not just some, tech industry drama.
Right.
This could actually affect, everyone who uses, the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to, really unpack this lawsuit today, try to figure out what it tells us about, who really controls the cloud.
Yeah.
And by the end, hopefully, everyone listening will understand what's at stake here.
Exactly.
And not just for businesses, but literally anyone using technology these days.
Yeah, and cloud computing has kind of quietly become this backbone of our digital world.
It really has.
Yeah. I mean, think about it, from storing your photos
Right.
to running these super complicated business applications.
Yeah.
The cloud is pretty much a part of everything we do online.
Yeah.
And this lawsuit is kind of shining a light on the power that the biggest companies in this market have.
Mm-hmm.
Companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Google.
Right.
These big players.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of this lawsuit.
Okay.
It basically says that Microsoft is using these kind of shady pricing tactics to get ahead.
Yeah.
So they're being accused of charging more for their Windows Server software when it's running on a competitor's cloud platform.
Yeah.
If you're using Amazon Web Services instead of Microsoft's own Azure platform.
Right, exactly. And to understand why this is maybe a problem.
Yeah.
Let's pretend for a second you want to watch a specific channel on your TV.
Okay.
But your cable company is yeah, you can watch it, but it's going to cost you extra unless you use our cable box.
Ah, okay.
So it's kind of like that, they're saying that Microsoft's making it more expensive to use their software.
Yeah.
Unless you're also using their cloud infrastructure.
So this might sound kind of technical and abstract,
Sure.
but it has real world consequences.
It does.
So what would the impact of this be on businesses, everyday businesses?
Well, thousands of businesses in the UK could be affected by this.
Wow.
Potentially. So if they decided to use a cloud platform other than Azure, Microsoft's platform,
Right.
they might end up paying way more than they should for their Windows Server software,
Okay.
which could really hurt their bottom line, especially for smaller businesses.
Right, the ones that are already kind of struggling.
Exactly, yeah, operating on tight margins.
And this is I imagine this is raising some red flags because the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA,
Right.
they're already looking into the whole cloud industry for these kinds of anti-competitive practices.
Absolutely. And this lawsuit is it's part of this bigger discussion about the power that these huge tech companies have.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen similar concerns with Google, for example, and their antitrust issues in the EU with Microsoft.
Right.
So it seems like regulators are really starting to pay attention to how these companies are operating in the digital world.
Yeah. All right. So we've got this lawsuit alleging unfair pricing, and we've got the CMA looking over everyone's shoulder. So what is Microsoft saying about all of this?
Well, naturally, they're denying the allegations.
Right.
They're saying that their licensing terms are fair.
Yeah.
And that they just need to, make back the money they invested in their technology.
Of course. Yeah.
But critics are pushing back, saying that, that doesn't really hold up when it seems like their pricing is intentionally designed to put competitors at a disadvantage.
Right. Yeah, it's you got to make your money back, but
Well,
it can't be at the expense of everyone else.
right, exactly, yeah.
You mentioned that this is all kind of part of a bigger trend.
Yeah.
So what does the European cloud market look like right now? And what are some of the concerns that people are bringing up?
Well, so the European cloud market has actually grown a lot overall.
Okay.
But the market share for European cloud firms, companies based in Europe, that's actually gotten smaller.
Really?
Yeah. So data from Synergy Research Group shows that their share was almost cut in half between 2017 and 2022.
Wow.
So it makes you wonder, why are these European companies losing ground if the market's, booming?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Is it all because of what Microsoft's allegedly doing? Are there other things going on?
It's probably a mix of things.
Okay.
Microsoft's pricing strategy might be part of it.
Yeah.
But there are other concerns, too.
Like what?
Some experts think that the way these big cloud providers package their software and infrastructure, it could be preventing competition,
Okay.
Imagine you're trying to, sell this amazing cake.
Okay.
But you're only allowed to use your competitor's oven and ingredients.
Right.
It's going to be tough, right?
Yeah, that's not going to be easy.
No, it's not going to be easy at all.
So you're saying that smaller cloud companies, they might have trouble competing if their software doesn't work well on other companies' platforms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And this brings us to the whole issue of technical integration.
Okay.
Like, it's great to have competitive pricing.
Yeah.
But if your software doesn't work smoothly with the main cloud platforms, you can have a hard time,
Yeah.
And that's maybe where some of these European companies are struggling.
Okay.
They just don't have the same resources as these big tech companies to make sure everything integrates perfectly across different platforms.
So even if a smaller company comes up with amazing software,
Right.
it doesn't matter if it can only run well on their own little cloud platform.
Yeah.
And then it makes it almost impossible to compete with, the big guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Who can afford to make sure their software works everywhere.
Right. And that lack of technical compatibility can create what's called a lock-in effect.
Lock-in, okay.
Yeah. So businesses, they might hesitate to switch to a smaller cloud provider.
Even if the prices are better.
Even if the prices are better.
Because they're worried about things not working.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. They're worried about compatibility issues.
Okay. So is this just a case of, the rich get richer in the tech world?
Yeah.
Or is there any, hope that things could change?
Well, this isn't the first time Microsoft's been in trouble for their licensing practices.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A while back, they actually had to pay a 20 million euro settlement.
Wow.
To a cloud trade body in the EU for similar practices. So that could be a sign that regulators are starting to take this stuff more seriously.
Okay. And then, of course, there's this current lawsuit in the UK.
Right.
Which could be huge for the whole industry.
Absolutely. And this UK lawsuit, it's really interesting because it's specifically about software licensing in the cloud.
Okay.
Which is something that hasn't really been examined in detail before.
Mm-hmm.
So the outcome of this case could set a precedent for other cases in the future.
Oh, wow.
And maybe even change the way cloud services are priced and offered, all over the world.
So this could have ripple effects way beyond the UK.
It could.
Yeah. But I think it's important to remember that the cloud isn't just some abstract idea.
Right.
It really affects all of us, even if we're not directly working with cloud technology.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
The cost of these cloud services, the options that are available, the speed of innovation, all this stuff, it impacts everyone.
It does.
Not just businesses.
Yeah.
It impacts consumers, entrepreneurs, artists, researchers, anyone who uses technology.
So before we move on to talking about what could happen with this lawsuit, and what it could mean for the future of the cloud, I want to take a second to ask you, the listener, a question.
Okay.
What really sticks out to you in all of this? Are we too reliant on these big tech companies for something as basic as the cloud?
Yeah.
Is this lawsuit a sign that things need to change?
Right. Those are great questions. It's a really important thing to be thinking about.
Yeah.
We've all gotten so used to how easy the cloud makes things and all the cool new stuff it lets us do.
Yeah.
But we can't just ignore the downsides of having just a few companies control such a huge part of how we live online.
Exactly. And think about how much we rely on the cloud for everything.
Oh, yeah.
Work, talking to people, entertainment. Even healthcare is moving on to the cloud.
It is.
It's almost like the digital version of electricity or water at this point.
Yeah. And that's exactly why this lawsuit is such a big deal.
Yeah.
It's making us actually confront the question of what happens if we let a few companies have all the power over this thing we all need.
Yeah.
It'd be like if, just a couple of companies owned all the power plants.
Right.
Or the water treatment facilities.
Yeah.
The impact on everyone, people and businesses, would be massive.
It would be, yeah. And it definitely makes you think about, fairness and whether everyone can actually get access to this stuff. What if these companies just decide, hey, we're going to use our control over the cloud to, stop other people from coming up with new ideas.
Right. Or to just favor their own products and services.
Exactly.
That's a real possibility.
Yes.
If they push all the smaller companies out of the market, we could end up with less choice, higher prices, and new tech coming out way slower.
It'd be like if the only apps on your phone were made by 3 mega corporations. Not exactly a super exciting digital world.
That's a great way to put it. It's not exciting at all.
No.
And it really makes you wonder if the people in charge, the regulators, should be doing more
Yeah.
to make sure everyone has a fair shot in the cloud market.
Right.
You know?
Well, the CMA looking into the cloud industry, that's got to be a good start, right?
It is, yeah. It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But it's important to keep in mind, this lawsuit is just like one piece of the much bigger puzzle.
Okay.
We've also got Google's antitrust case against Microsoft
Right.
in the EU,
Right.
which is raising similar red flags about them trying to squash competition.
Yeah.
So clearly the regulators are starting to pay attention,
Uh-huh.
but whether they'll actually do something effective, that's still up in the air.
It really feels like we're at a crossroads.
It does, yeah.
On the one hand, the cloud has brought so many good things.
It has.
Flexibility, you can scale things up or down easily.
Yeah. It's more affordable than a lot of the old ways of doing things.
But then on the other hand,
Right.
there are these worries about who has all the power.
Mm-hmm.
And what if they try to stop competition and slow down how fast new tech is being made?
Yeah, and that's the tough part, right?
It is.
We need to figure out how to use the cloud's power for good
Yeah.
while also making sure that it helps everyone, not just a few at the top.
Right.
It's going to take some serious thinking from the people making policy, from businesses, and from all of us just using the cloud every day.
So let's switch gears a bit
Yeah.
and talk about what could actually happen because of this lawsuit.
Sure.
What are some ways this could all play out?
Yeah.
And what would the impact on the cloud market be?
Well, predicting what will happen with a lawsuit is always hard.
Yeah, especially one this complicated.
Exactly, yeah.
This could take years.
It really could.
And there are a lot of different ways it could go.
Absolutely.
Microsoft could win, and then things would basically stay the same.
Right.
Or the court could say they're wrong, and then they'd have to pay huge fines, change how they do their licensing,
Yeah.
and maybe we'd even see the whole cloud market get restructured.
It's possible.
If Microsoft lost, I bet that would send shockwaves through the entire tech industry.
Oh, totally would.
Yeah?
It'd be a huge signal.
Mhm.
And it might make regulators more willing to really crack down on these other big tech companies. It could even give those smaller cloud companies the courage to, stand up to the giants.
Yeah, to fight back a little.
Yeah. And that could lead to more competition, maybe even lower prices for everyone.
Sounds like there's a lot riding on this.
There is, yeah.
Not just for Microsoft, but for how the whole cloud develops in the future.
I think you're right. And this case really highlights a huge question
Okay.
that we need to be thinking about as tech keeps changing so fast.
What's that?
How do we get the good stuff from innovation
Yeah,
while also making sure there's fair competition
right.
and that people are protected? It's a tough balance to strike.
It really is. There aren't any easy answers.
Nope.
But one thing's for sure, the cloud is becoming more and more a part of our lives.
It is.
And we got to start talking seriously about how to make sure it works for everybody.
I couldn't agree more. The cloud might seem like this kind of, techie abstract thing,
Yeah.
but its impact on how we live is real, and it's getting more real all the time.
It is.
We need to stay informed. We need to be part of these discussions
Yeah.
and make sure our voices are heard.
We can't just sit back and let these tech companies do whatever they want.
Exactly.
Our whole digital future is at stake.
That's right. And that actually brings us to another really important point about this case.
Okay.
The potential impact on how fast new tech gets created.
Oh, right.
Yeah, if just a few companies have all the control over the cloud,
Mm-hmm.
it could really slow down the development of new tech and services.
That's a scary thought.
It is, isn't it?
Imagine if all the cool new gadgets and software came from just like 3 companies.
Right. We'd be missing out on so many great ideas
We would.
and innovations just because the playing field's tilted.
Exactly.
We need a cloud market where lots of different companies can compete.
Yeah.
To get real innovation, we need startups, entrepreneurs, those smaller companies
Mhm.
to have a chance to make it,
Yeah.
to shake things up a bit, and to come up with the groundbreaking tech of the future.
But how do we get there?
Right, that's the big question.
It is. How do we make sure the cloud is helping innovation instead of holding it back?
That's the million-dollar question. There are some things we could do.
Like what?
Stronger antitrust laws. Maybe the government could invest in open source cloud tech.
Okay.
But ultimately, it's about making an environment where competition and innovation can both thrive.
Right. And that means taking a hard look at who has the power in the cloud market
It does.
and making sure no one company gets too big to control everything.
Absolutely. We need to make sure everyone's playing by the same rules,
Yeah.
that those rules are enforced fairly,
Right.
and that we have ways to stop any one company from getting too much power.
So as we're getting close to the end of this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
The cloud's more than just a handy place to store your files or run programs.
It is.
It's becoming like the foundation of our digital world, the infrastructure that everything else is built on.
Yeah, it really is.
And the question we all got to ask ourselves is, what kind of future do we want for the cloud?
That's a good question.
Do we want a future where it's controlled by a handful of powerful companies?
Yeah.
Or a future where it's open and everyone can access it and benefit from it?
Right. Those are the choices we're facing.
That's a powerful question to think about.
It is.
And as this lawsuit moves forward and as the CMA keeps investigating, we're going to have to face these questions head on.
We are.
And decide what kind of digital future we want to create. It feels like this lawsuit against Microsoft is like just scratching the surface.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's pointing to something much bigger, this concentration of power in tech.
Right.
And how that power could be used to hurt competition,
Absolutely.
to stifle innovation.
Yeah.
And in the end, that hurts all of us who use technology.
It does, and I think it's important to emphasize, like, this isn't just a problem for businesses.
Right.
Or for people who are, like, really into tech.
Yeah.
This is something that affects everyone.
It really does.
The cloud is becoming so woven into our lives that, like, it's going to shape the future of everything.
It really is.
Education, healthcare, how we entertain ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, practically every part of society.
It feels like we're at this, like, turning point in history. We're moving into a world that totally revolves around the cloud.
We are.
And the choices we make right now, they're going to have huge consequences down the line.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so crucial for us to be part of this conversation.
It is.
To really understand what's at stake here.
Yeah.
And to fight for a future where the cloud benefits everyone.
Right. Not just a select few.
Exactly.
So where do we even go from here?
Right.
Like, what can we actually do as individuals to make sure the cloud develops in a way that's good for society?
Well, I think the first thing is, like, we have to stay informed.
Okay.
We got to pay attention to these issues,
Mm-hmm.
learn about different viewpoints, and even, like, question our own assumptions.
That's important.
The more we understand about how the cloud works and the forces that are shaping it,
Right.
the better equipped we'll be to make good decisions
Okay.
and to push for change.
It's easy to feel kind of overwhelmed by all this.
It is, yeah.
But like you said, knowledge is power.
It really is.
The more we know, the harder it is for someone to take advantage of us.
Exactly.
And I guess beyond just staying informed,
Mm-hmm.
we can also support groups or initiatives
Right.
that are trying to make the cloud more open,
Absolutely.
more accessible, more fair for everyone.
There are groups out there pushing for stronger antitrust laws,
Okay.
promoting open source cloud technology,
Mm-hmm.
and working to make sure the cloud's benefits reach communities
Mm-hmm.
that are often left behind.
So it's not just about, like, complaining or feeling helpless.
Hey.
There are actual things we can do
There are, yeah.
to make a difference.
We can contact our elected officials,
Mm-hmm.
support organizations that align with our values,
Yeah.
and make conscious choices about which tech companies we give our money to.
That's right.
Yeah.
And which ones we trust with our data.
Exactly. It's about being thoughtful about how we use tech
Mm-hmm.
and being active participants in shaping the digital world.
So as we wrap up this deep dive today,
Yeah,
I hope everyone listening is walking away with a clearer picture
I hope so too.
of how complex the cloud really is,
Mm-hmm.
the power struggles that are happening,
Right.
and the impact it could have on all our lives.
Big deal.
This lawsuit against Microsoft is really just one small part of a much bigger story.
It is.
And that story is still being written.
It is. And it's a story that we all have a role in shaping.
That's right.
So, stay curious, stay informed,
Mm-hmm.
and stay engaged.
Yeah,
The future of the cloud really is in our hands.
well said. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.